I try not to have expectations, but sometimes I can't help it. When a movie or a TV show I've been looking forward to finally comes out, I can't help but have expectations because I have been so hyped for it. And sometimes my expectation is what kills me. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video, I want to talk about Netflix new show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's basically a remake of the cartoon version that came out some time ago, but this one is live action. And yeah, that's all I'll say about it. I had so much expectations going into the show. Like when I heard they were making a remake, I was so excited for it. I was on the edge of my seat, so giddy to see it. And when the first trailer came out and it looked so good, I was so excited that yes, it seems Netflix gets this thing. They are going to get the essence of this show. And when I watched the show, although some parts of it were good, but most of it didn't live up to my expectations. And I think that's a me problem because I had so much expectations. First of all, let me talk about the things I liked in this show. I like that it did not just retell the same story, it did not just copy and paste the complete thing. They added some new tweaks to the story that made it much more interesting. And because a lot of people have seen the original show, they could easily predict what will happen. And if that element is there, there won't be any surprise to the show. It's just watching something you have seen before. So the filmmakers or the showrunners, they incorporated new storylines, they incorporated some tweaks to the story that made it much more unpredictable and much more interesting. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you feel like just do the original thing. Why are you ruining this thing? But other times it works. And that thing I liked about it was the world using the character designs. They looked so accurate. They were so like the original show. The sets were beautiful and gorgeous to look at. The character designs were spot on. Most of the characters looked like their original counterparts. And it was something that just easily draws you back in and makes you fit back into this world. And I love that they paid that much attention to detail. And the music that they used the original score. And for some reason, it felt much more epic than the one they used in the cartoon. I guess it makes sense because this is a much different story. It's a much more dramatic story, live action story, and the epicness of the sound of the music just fits so well with it. But the things I didn't like about it, first of all, the characters. I feel like they butchered the characters, honestly. Some of the characters felt like a different version of themselves, like they existed in another universe. I was like, what? This is not the character I know. Katara, for instance, she did not even feel like Katara. She just felt like some random girl that was hanging out with that was hanging out with the Avatar and his and her brother. She did not feel like the character we knew in the original show. The character that we knew in the original show was strong-willed and didn't take shit from anybody. But this Katara, she's more submissive. Yes, that's what I'll use. She's much more submissive to things that happen around her. And I'm like, this is not Katara. What have you done with Katara? And another thing is the way they explored Katara and Aang's relationship. Their relationship in the original show was something that was very essential to the story because Katara was able to balance Aang sometimes when he went crazy and when he couldn't control his anger. Katara was there to be able to bring him down and make him see reason or something like that. But in this show, it is not existence. That their relationship is not there. And it just feels like they're just hanging out together without any emotional connection. And the emotional connection between them in the original show was something that was very present and added so much to the series. But it is not here in this show. And when some things happen, it feels on end. It makes me think that the showrunners just relies on the audience's knowledge of the cartoon to add emotional stakes to the show. And it just feels on end because we don't see these people having this kind of connection. We don't see anything that makes us relate to what these characters are doing. Like what I'm trying to say is that there are some payoffs later on in the show that does not feel end. You've not seen the characters together build this kind of relationship to you to achieve something like this at the end. So it's like, what are these people doing? It does not feel end and it feels rushed. The other characters as well, Zuko, Iroh, Sokka, they did not feel like their characters. Like, okay, to be fair, towards the ending of the show, they started to feel more like their characters. But most of the time, they did not feel like. Zuko in the original show was someone that was filled with rage. You could see him always angry every time. Like, his rage is something that makes him who he is. And that is part of his character development in the show, how he develops and tries to learn to control his rage. But in this show, he doesn't have that rage. It's more like sadness, not rage. He's more sad than angry. And I'm like, no, this does not feel right. It does not feel right. Soccer, man, it did not even feel like the soccer I knew. Yes, he had some elements with the original soccer, but still, I feel like there's some things missing. And why the soccer felt like the original counterpart was because the actor plays to it. He knows the kind of character he is playing and he plays to it and tries to make the character like the original one, and he does a good job there. but the show does not play to it. And speaking of, there's some characters that try to be humorous in the show because they are humorous characters in the original show, but they try to do it here, but the show does not play to it. The show is much more dramatic. I feel like if the show had played to the humor, it would have been a much better show. It would have been much more like the original. And the dialogue in this show is very, very unrealistic. The way the characters talk, it feels like something I can't even explain. It doesn't feel realistic. Although it's not a show that's realistic, it's a show that has bendings and all that stuff, like humans controlling water and controlling fire. That is not realistic. So it makes sense that dialogue might not be as realistic. But still, it felt very, very unreal. It felt very jarring. And the fact that they were always using the dialogue most of the time as exposition, just explaining things to the audience, things that most of the time we already know, but it just keeps still spoon feeding us and spoon feeding us. And it's like, it was so heavy handed. Like, show, don't tell. That's a very, very good thing to follow. Show us instead of telling us, because if you see it, it means more. And it feels like we're actually participating in what we are saying instead of you just telling us. It's like you're condescending on us and just telling us some things that we already know or things we need to know. So the dialogue was not great and it felt very, very unrealistic. And another thing that was not great was the acting. Sometimes the acting was good. Towards the end of the show, it felt like the characters were starting to get comfortable. So the acting started getting better. But earlier on, the acting felt very bland. It felt bland. It felt flavorless. Yeah, that's how I can describe the acting. But it got better towards the end. And that was another thing with the characters also. The characters didn't feel as much as themselves in the beginning. But towards the end, they started feeling like who they're supposed to be. And I can't talk about this show without talking about the bending. The bending in this show was very, very good. I cannot lie. It was very good. It was not great, but it was still very enjoyable. They did it so much better than I expected it to be. It felt very, very realistic. I tried some of the bendings, like the fire and the earth bending and the air bending sometimes. They all looked very, very good. But the water bending, it was not all there. It looked like they could have refined it a little bit more because the water looked fake. And I wish they had done something better. Because when you see them use the water bending, it just feels like the water does not land on them. The water just dries or just evaporates like that. It does not feel as realistic as it should feel. So that was something that I wish that they had done better, the water bending. But the other bendings, they looked very good and they were very impressive. And I appreciated that they got that thing right. Overall, this series was not that great. It was okay, it was decent, but it wasn't great. And the fact that they did not capture the art of the show, the silliness, the goofiness of the show, even though they deal with some serious topics, it was still something that was very, very present in the original show that made the show so good. So when that element is not there, it felt a little bit different. But it was still a very enjoyable show. The bendings looked very good. The set designs and the character designs were spot on. And the new tweaks that they added to the stories just made it very, very much interesting and not predictable. And I really appreciate that. But I still wish they had done better. And hopefully in the next season, they capture some things that made the original show what it is and deliver it in the next season. But so far, it could be better. So have you guys seen Netflix's new Avatar, The Last Airbender show? What do you think about it? Comment below and let me know. If this is your first time on my channel, my G, please subscribe to my channel for more contents like this. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Cheers.